I'm gonna show you how to have the perfect sourdough loaf every single time. This is my little Valentine's design I tried. I didn't ever win arts and crafts prizes, but just ignore that. My sourdough loaf comes out like this every single time, no matter what I do. And it's not me, I promise, because I am not the best cook, but this recipe is so perfect and so easy, you cannot go wrong. So this is a 3-day process, which is kind of also one of my favorite things about it, because I don't have to have one day where I'm just like, my kitchen's exploded in a mess and I'm doing all the things. It's like little steps every single day and then you're done. Day 1 is our starter. I always make 2 Levains, as they're called, because I like to make 2 loaves at a time. They freeze super well. So all you have to do is pop them out of the freezer, toast them, they're beautiful and perfect. So freeze 1, eat 1, or if you're like my family, we kind of just eat them both. Also, I think this is a pretty wide known thing at this point, but I did not know this. You can actually just keep your starter in the fridge. And if you keep your starter in the fridge, you do not have to feed it every single day and do the whole discard situation. Literally, whenever you make your sourdough, pull out your starter for your levain that you're gonna be using, and then feed the rest of it, and that's all you need to do. And then you just pop it back in the fridge. So freaking easy. Grab your mason jar, place it on your scale. So you will need a scale. This is the Amazon Basics one. I cannot even tell you, I don't use measuring cups at this point anymore because I love my scale so much. And it makes my life so easy. Zero it out. And now what you're gonna do is you're gonna add 50 grams of starter to your mason jar. I use a chopstick to do this. You do not, my dog. Right here. We're gonna have dog sounds, chicken sounds, probably lamb sounds, all the things. I use a chopstick to do this because if you use certain things, it can react with the starter incorrectly, and like, I think it's metals or something like that. So I always just use a chopstick. You don't have to use a chopstick. I'm sure there's other things you can use, but here we are. Next thing we're gonna add is the 100 grams of water, which is usually around a half cup. Zero out your scale again, and we're gonna do 100 grams of flour. Now we're just gonna mix that together, and that's your starter. That's it. We have a new puppy. He does not come inside, but he thinks he does, and he's trying to get us to pay attention to him and go outside. So for my starter, I use a 1-to-2 ratio. It doesn't rise as fast, but I feel like the rise is just much better, and also because I like to wait till the next day to use it, just so I have all the time I need to use it. That's why I do it. You can also do a 1-1-1. So if you want to do like 50 grams of starter to 50 grams of water and flour, you can do that too. But I like the 1-to-2. It gives you 24 hours. It takes a tiny bit longer to rise, but when it does, I think it's just much better. It works much better for me anyway. So now we're gonna pretend it's day 2. I obviously made this yesterday. Your levain has doubled in size and it's nice and bubbly, which means it's active. So now we're ready to use it. Pro tip, I always make 2 starters because I like to make 2 loaves of bread at a time. I just think it's so much easier. I am going to be making 2 loaves of bread today. So I'm showing you how to do 2. So I'm showing you the recipe doubled, but I will have the recipe normal written as well. I'm going to use a KitchenAid. I know so many people say to do this by hand. You can absolutely just mix it by hand. That's totally fine too. Since I'm making 2 loaves, it's a little bit easier in the KitchenAid, and also even if you're making 1 loaf, KitchenAid makes it easier. So for a single loaf, you need 227 grams of starter. I'm gonna double that. I'm not exactly sure what that is. 454 grams of starter. Basically, it's gonna be almost both of these 2 jars. Again, zeroed out my scale. I have my KitchenAid here on the scale and zeroed out. So we pulled 243 grams from that one, and now from this one, again, we're trying to get 454. We have 455. Just so you know, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect every time. You can be if you want to be. It does not have to be. The next thing we need is 680 grams of water. It's gonna be somewhere around 3 cups. The single recipe just calls for 340, but because we're doubling it, we need 680. We got 682, close enough. Now the recipe calls for 600 grams of your regular flour and then 50 grams of wheat flour. I don't put any wheat flour in mine. I just do regular all-purpose flour for the entire thing. So no, you can put 50 grams of wheat flour if you would like to, or I guess 100 grams if you're doubling it. I'm not gonna do that. I'm just doing all straight white flour. I am going to do 1,300 grams of flour, obviously because we're doubling it. all just my good old all-purpose flour. Always have flour on hand. We're at 9:48, so I'm gonna keep going. Boom. 1,300 exact. So that's all we need for now. We are gonna add the salt a little bit later. I will show you when. Not quite yet. So I'm just popping that here in my KitchenAid with my dough hook, and we're gonna start very slowly. Always make ssure to lock it. I always forget to lock it. I start really slowly. If you do have a shield, you can use a shield. But I just start really slowly so that the flour isn't going everywhere, and it kind of just can get a little bit mixed, and then I'll speed it up a little bit. I don't know if there's any specific way you're supposed to do this. I'm just gonna show you how I kind of, I guess, wing it, a little bit. I'm gonna bring it up a little bit. See, it's starting this. Speeding it up a tiny bit more since it's all incorporated. So I'm on level 3 now. I'm just gonna stop that and help this a tiny bit. Sometimes I have to hold the lockdown. We're gonna call this good for now. Okay, so we've let this rest for 20 minutes and now we're back. So I'm gonna uncover it. The recipe calls for 2.5 teaspoons of salt. Obviously, because we've doubled it, we're going to do 5. The way I like to do this is I kind of like to I'll put 3 in kind of on the top, and then I'll let it run, and then I'll do 2 more, just to kind of help it mix. Obviously, we're going to be doing stretch and folds, which also helps it to mix, but yeah, that's usually what I do. It's got a little mix in there. Pull this all down off my dough hook, and we're gonna put the final 2 teaspoons of salt in. So now that that's all mixed together, I'm gonna go ahead and put this into a glass bowl, because the next thing we're gonna have to do is our stretch and folds. Honestly, the great thing about this recipe is you'll find that some sourdough recipes are so insanely sticky, but this one is not. Like, literally my bowl is basically clean. It's just it's so easy to work with, honestly. I'm gonna cover that again. You can use a tea towel for this or whatever you wanna use. I'm just gonna use some saran wrap. And we're gonna let this sit for 30 minutes. Okay, so it's been 30 minutes. We're gonna do our first set of stretch and folds. We're gonna take the cap, we're gonna take the, what is this called? Plastic. Take your cover, whatever you have, off your sourdough, and then wet your hands with a little bit of filtered water. It just kind of helps to not let the dough stick, even though honestly, this dough is the least sticky of all the doughs. Grab one side, we're gonna pull a little bit and stretch it over. And then same thing all the way around, usually probably like 8 stretch and folds each time. I honestly don't count. I don't worry about it. I just kind of go for it. I've never had a loaf come out badly because of how I did a stretch and fold or anything like that. So don't even worry about it. It's a very easy process. As it's getting thicker, you'll be able to lift it up and kind of pull it down. You can tell about at that point, you're good. So then you're gonna cover your dough and wait another 20 to 30 minutes and do another set of stretch and folds. You can do this anywhere from 4 to 6 times. Honestly though, I have done it 1 or 2 times. I have waited hours in between if I've like made dough and then I'll forget about it and we'll like go to the store and then I come home and I'm like, oh shoot, I didn't even do a stretch and fold. I'll do a stretch and fold and then I'll just like form the dough. So this is the most forgiving sourdough ever. If you're a busy mom, if you're running around, or if you're just home and you're ready to do your stretch and folds, the dough will let you do whatever you decide. But the instructions do say every 20 to 30 minutes, do your stretch and folds 4 to 6 times. So I'm not gonna film the rest of my stretch and folds. That's all we're gonna do. And then I'm gonna come back and show you how to form your dough. Okay, so we're back to finally shape this. We're gonna do 2 shapings and then between them give it like a 15-minute rest. I'll show you how to do it. I'm just laughing though because while we were gone, my husband decided to cut into our loaf. But just so you can see the inside of it, it's very pretty. It's very nice and beautiful. All the things. Okay, we're gonna do this angle so I can show you what we're doing exactly. So we obviously have finished up our stretch and folds, no matter how many you've decided to do. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna split the dough into half and put it out onto our counter. I have just very lightly floured my counter. You don't need it to it crazy floured because like I said, this is not as sticky of a dough. Hold on, sometimes it works through in the bowl, sometimes I just pour it out. Either way. I don't measure, like with the weight. You can do that. It doesn't make any difference to me. I just like to make sure they kind of stay in a ball shape. It just makes it easier for shaping later. So now the next thing you want to do is when you put it onto your counter, you can do this one of two ways. You can either take a rolling pin and roll it out. I do not think that's the traditional way to do it, but sometimes it's just easier to me to get a rolling pin and to just roll it out, or you can just do it with your hands and by stretching the dough and kind of bringing it out like this. I also like doing it with a rolling pin because I'm not a huge fan of a ton of little holes in my bread. As you can kind of tell, I kind of like a more traditional loaf, so that's why I don't mind rolling it out with a rolling pin. But generally, if you want more air pockets or whatever you want to call it, don't do it with a rolling pin. So we're just pretty much making some sort of a square-ish shape. It doesn't really matter. Now we're gonna pull one side and bring it into the center, pull the next side, bring it into the center, and all four sides, and just bring them into the center. And then from there, you're gonna take all these little corners and just kind of bring it all in, and then flip it over. And then this is how we kind of make it into that shape. Is you kind of just, I found, slide on the counter while tucking in those edges, and that's kind of how you do it. So if you have more flour on your counter, it's almost harder to do this because it won't stick at all. That's why I do such a thin layer of flour, is because you actually don't need a crazy intense amount. You're gonna pull out your rice flour and just give your banneton basket just a little light dusting of flour. I use a plastic banneton. You do not have to, you can use the traditional baskets. I don't think it makes any difference, honestly, which one you decide to use. I've found they're both exactly similar, but these I can put into my dishwasher and wash. So it wins. So if you have not used your rolling pin and you've just used your hands, it's probably a good idea to do a second shaping. So before you place them into the bannetons, just have them sit on the counter, cover them up again with a tea towel or your saran wrap, and then just do that whole process one more time, exactly how you do it. But because we used a rolling pin, they're a lot more, we got a lot more of the bubbles out and all the things. So I don't want to do it again. I'm gonna leave them exactly how they are here. And now I'm going to cover them with my saran wrap, and we're going to do a cold proofing, which is basically we're gonna put it into the fridge. I usually just put my bread into the fridge overnight, and then like tomorrow morning I'll cook it up. You can do it longer if you would like it to ferment more and get more of that sourdough taste. I don't find it makes too much of a difference how many days it is, so I usually just do it the next morning because I want bread. But it can stay in your fridge for up to 3 days. So that's it for day 2. I just put them into the fridge. We're gonna let them be there overnight. I'm gonna come back in the morning and cook them up for you. Okay, you guys, it's not the next day, it's been a few days, but it's okay. We're gonna finish this bread off. So we're gonna take our Dutch oven and we're gonna put it into the oven. So if you don't have a Dutch oven, you actually do not need one to cook sourdough. All you need to do is get 2 sheet pans and heat up your oven to 425 like we're about to do. And then when you go to put your bread in, you want to boil some water. I usually use my kettle and I'll boil water, and you're gonna put it on the pan that's underneath and just put all that boiling water in there. That kind of helps to create steam, which is the exact thing that your Dutch oven is going to be doing. So let's place this in here. Also, I know my pan is so freaking dirty. I don't know how to clean it anymore. I think I baked it all onto there. So we're gonna put our oven at 425, and we're gonna let that heat up with the pan in there. And then as it's getting close, I'm gonna pull out my bread and I'm gonna score it and get it all ready to be baked. But we're gonna first wait for this to heat up. So I kind of just leave it in my fridge until it's literally time to go in the oven. Okay, so my oven is almost preheated. So I took my sourdough out of the fridge. I have parchment paper and also my rice flour. And what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna take a small piece of parchment paper. This is just gonna be lining your pan. I'm just gonna see how much I need. Just about that much. I'm gonna cover this. You also need your bread loaf. To take your rice flour, I'm just going to gently dust it on this is technically the bottom, but the top right here. Place your parchment paper here, and then we're gonna flip it over. Take it out. Usually it just takes a little tiny bit of coaxing. If you actually have a Bannatin basket with like a liner, it's much easier, but these just take a tiny bit more coaxing. That's it. They still come out. I'm going to actually just dust off this extra flour that's on here, and it's ready. Some fresh white rice flour onto it. And then I like to do a pretty basic design. You can either do the X, which is super easy, but I like to do it on the side. And I just do this one going from one side to the other. And I think it's supposed to be like a 1/4 inch or something like that. Usually I'll do it till about, like on your bread lamb, till about like right, so it's that deep in there. And then I love doing like the little wheat design is the most standard. So I usually do 3 wheat. So I do 3 very like soft stalks, and then give them, you know, little, I don't really know. I am not the best artist, so I kind of just go for it, whatever feels right. And that's ready to go. We're gonna pull out our Dutch oven and place your bread right there into it. Place the cap back on, because like I said, unless you're doing the steam method where you put steam underneath in another pan, you want to put the cap back on. So we're going to pop that whole thing into the oven, and we're going to do that for just 20 minutes. And then after that 20 minutes, we're gonna come back and we're gonna take the cap off. And for my oven and for my liking, I will cook it for another 23 minutes exactly. But you can also test the temperature and all that kind of stuff. But I think 23 minutes is all it needs. For the second half, when the cap is off, you can do anywhere from like 20 to 25 minutes. I really find that 23 minutes, like something about that is like perfect, where the top is not burnt and the bottom's not burnt, but it's still like perfect and so yummy. Our bread is done. Oh, so beautiful. So you want to place your bread immediately onto a wire rack. So we're just gonna pull it out of here and transfer it over. Oh, it's hot. Okay, it's very hot. But look at how pretty, so pretty. Once your bread is done cooking, you can't cut into it immediately. I know, it smells so good and you really want to, but you have to wait. usually until it's cooled. I usually wait, I think you're supposed to wait like something like 3 hours. I will wait at least an hour before I cut it open because I want it to be the most perfect. And if you cut into it immediately, sometimes it can make it become gummy in the middle. So you want to wait until it's a little bit more cooled and then enjoy your bread.